Hi everybody, welcome to another video. This one will be a little bit different, and I'll tell you why in a moment, but hopefully I'm going to piece something together. I haven't got my camera with me today, I'm travelling really light. What I have got, which I recently acquired, my phone handset, which I've had quite a few years, to be honest, because of budget, etc. You just make do with what you've got, and while it's working you don't change it. But it was starting to do some things that were making me a bit nervous, so I decided to switch my handset. Now, I've never had what I call a higher grade phone, always sort of something that's on a smaller budget, but the phone I had also didn't shoot pictures in RAW format, which I had in previous phones, which is quite nice because then you can edit it as you would do your camera shots. Still out of my price range as far as paying for it in one go, but I decided to rent a refurbished Samsung Galaxy S22, which I have to say, I can see why people go for the higher spec phones. It's so much more responsive than other phones that I've had, and yes, it's as some people say, it's a camera with a phone in it. So given I now have that, I always have a reasonable, or very reasonable camera with me. So I'm taking a walk through the woods. Any shots I get today will be taken on the Samsung, and but there was something else that I wanted to talk about in this video, and I've been trying to work out how to put this into a video. It's a bit boring just having me sit at the table at home, but it was about attitude materials for helping cope with fibromyalgia and chronic illness generally. And it's quite, so I was thinking about this, it's quite flattering in a way to be asked, because that means that something's coming across in my videos, whether it's the fact that I am out and about walking, and fibro and other chronic illnesses are on a spectrum, so from bedridden through to functioning near normal. I kind of think I'm somewhere in the middle, and it depends on any given day, you know, how far I swing from one side to the other. Thankfully never been bedridden, really struggled at the beginning, but as you'll have read in my blog, etc., and things I've said on previous videos, having the awareness just to stay active, having my photography helped. Yeah, I've been through all of this before, so I won't repeat myself, but yeah, I'm grateful that I do have some level of function in terms of activity, but it's the function in terms of reading, writing, dealing with any admin stuff, processing my images is easier because I'm looking at images, not having to read and understand things. Conversation is hard a lot of the time, wears me out very quickly. So talking to myself, to you through this screen, it's kind of like therapy really, offloading, but it's also helping. So in terms of attitude materials, now I wrote a blog post a while ago, and I'll link to it below, about having really one hell of a head start when Fibro hit me in 2019 and stopped me from doing my management job in logistics. And that head start was that for the previous sort of 19-20 years, I'd already started a meditation, yoga practice, was already doing my photography. So back in 2000, my wife and I both started attending yoga classes, and this was before our son was born. So once a week we'd go to yoga class, and we also at the same time started attending meditation course, which back then was in a local location where we lived in Luton, with the Brahma Kumaris. So we started those at the same time. We were both interested in that side of things, and that is at a point where, up to that point, I'd never really been an avid reader. I'm more of an audio-visual learner. But the first book that really flipped thinking on its head for me and helped me understand how to better navigate life was The Ancient Wisdom Modern World by His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Really good book. It helps you reframe things, and in my case it helps reframe that everybody else is on their journey. Same with the meditation lessons from Barack Amaris. Actually made sense in terms of everybody else going on, they're on their journeys, they will see the world differently, understand the world differently. Some people are on the same sort of path, but it helped me get a bit of clarity in terms of who I was as a person, what was important to me. So that was sort of the first book. Then following on from that, I started reading quite a lot. I mean, I had several books on them, which was very unusual for me. It sort of got me in the zone of reading more books on the spiritual path. I've read quite a lot of books around Buddhism, and what I would suggest is, if that's something that interests you and you want to know more about it, I don't have a copy anymore, but I did used to have a book that was pretty much, the title was Buddhism Made Plain and Simple. I can't remember who the author was, but there are plenty of those types of books out there. You can go to your library, etc. They've probably got those sorts of things. Or if you've got an ebook facility, that sort of thing, then have a look for those. But a set of books that I have kept, and I can only remember the exact title of the first one, is a trilogy by Lama Surya Das. Apologies if I've mispronounced that. But it's Awaken the Buddha Within. And the first of those books takes you through the Four Noble Truths of Buddhism, one interpreted widely as, life generally contains suffering and attachment, or attachment causes suffering when we get attached to things, to people, etc. Very deep subject. I won't go into it here. It doesn't answer the question that was asked. But then it goes through the eightfold path from those Four Noble Truths. Things like right mindfulness, right livelihood. Brain fog is kicking in, and I haven't written notes down because I thought I'd do this on the fly, a little bit more genuine. But it goes through that eightfold path. They don't work individually, they all connect together, so they all create this big picture, but it goes in depth of the sort of thinking and examples that he's gone through as a Buddhist practitioner and Lama, in terms of helping people understand their challenges and how to cope. So yeah, I would suggest that one. Another book that I really like and I've kept to myself, I had a bit of a culling of books a little while ago when I think we moved, and realised that we can't keep all of these. We've read them. Am I going to reread it? No. But the books that I mentioned, I have gone back to before the whole cognitive thing is, so the next one would be The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. It's I think it's a fictional book. Yeah, it's a fictional book. And it is a tale of, as it suggests, it's a high-flying lawyer. I think there's a heart attack involved in the courtroom, and he rethinks his whole life, sells his Ferrari, etc., and then he comes back a few years later, a completely changed person, and speaks to friends about his journey, and they where it goes from there. So that's another book that I find really useful. There's also other books like From Tibet with Love, that sort of thing, because then that piques my interest. These are places I would love to visit. So anything that is people on their own spiritual journey, where they visited these places or even had a conversation with His Holiness the Dalai Lama. These sorts of books also have helped me shape these things. And in terms of attitude, it just helps me reframe things, because I think people are surprised at how, I'd say easily, it's not been easy, but the fact that I have accepted that I have fibro and what it does to me, how it impacts my function, yet I'm still trying to make the most of what I can of what I've got. For example, being in the local woods as much as I can, tree energy. We know that breathing in the air from the trees has actually got some antibacterial properties and is good for us. Green light, the leaves, etc., it's good for us. So yeah, those are the sorts of things, and I think once you start reading one, you start picking up other books, flicking through. If it doesn't resonate with you, don't buy it, don't borrow it. Yeah, I think that in terms of my attitude to fibro has come very much from that spiritual interest and what it has done for me before fibro hit, but also still trying to work out my place in life and what life means. Am I in the right career, etc., going down a path that I never felt really comfortable in, but was highly capable of doing. But I wished I'd been doing something else, creative maybe, probably. So yeah, it's the kind of thing where you start reading, and if you want to know more, then you sort of find your own path. Another book that, and obviously management training background, masters in management and diploma in logistics, etc. Studying that, how to support people in your team, etc., work with clients, all those sorts of things. That still all comes into play, although I have to be much more aware of how I present myself and how my function is than I used to have to be as a manager, where I could just be, it was sort of second nature. But all of that comes into play, and obviously there was a lot of reading around that, writing my dissertation, etc. It wasn't just about the operational side, it was about the resources, including people and machinery, etc., how you get the best from that. You can apply that to yourself when a chronic illness comes along and impacts you, or anything comes along and impacts you. So on that side of things, I would say that probably the book I would go back to more often than not, and I think I had a hard copy of this, but I still have an audio version of it because of my function. I find audio much easier, and that is Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. What you get from listening to the audiobook is his own voice, and I like that. He's telling it firsthand to an audience. The way he tells the stories, the intonation, the pauses, etc., to make you think about certain situations. So yeah, I would highly recommend, if you can listen to that, if that suits you. There are obviously lots of books around coping with fibromyalgia. There are a number of those authors also doing YouTube channels, and I will link to those below, the ones that I'm connected with, and also people that I know around the globe through fibromyalgia advocacy. But the one book that I do own, and I'm very grateful that the author actually sent it to me after he interviewed me on his podcast, is Conquering Your Fibromyalgia by Dr. Michael Lenz, based in Wisconsin in the US. Michael is on a mission. He doesn't have fibromyalgia, but he is on a mission to help those of us that do have. And reading through there, it's for medical practitioners as well as patients. There is stuff in there, and obviously we can learn from what he's saying to the medical professionals in how we then cope with our appointments. So I have taken that book when I was asking, or had the intention of asking, and I did ask, get my words out in the right order, I did ask for referrals back to neurology and ADHD, because I'd kind of plateaued in what I was doing, and actually I've slid back this year in terms of my progress coping with fibro. So yeah, Conquering Your Fibromyalgia. Also listen to the podcast. He's also just started posting the videos of the interviews he does on YouTube, so you can subscribe there if you want to sit and listen that way, or listen to the podcast, which comes out weekly. So I would highly recommend that. There are other books, including written by doctors. I think Dr. Ginevra Lipton in the US has fibro and has written a book on coping with it. There are loads of them. What I found is, from ones that I've borrowed from the library and a couple that I bought, it's all pretty much around the same sort of thing that you learn from the pain clinic. So your pacing, your mindfulness, movement, exercise, diet, etc. It's one that I've yet to obtain and have a read through. I think having read through a number of others and then getting Michael's book after being interviewed was really a great help. Michael's book, by the way, I think is available as an e-book, so you don't need to order it because it will come from the US and pay the shipping. So I think it is available as an e-book as well. Right, I'm at one of my favourite locations in the wood with this massive beech tree. So I am going to talk about how I keep myself going now that my function is impacted to the point of making it very difficult to read. Even with my yellow lens glasses and things on, the brain function, I used to be able to read a book, speed read, because it's a skill you learn when you're a manager with reading documents, etc. And now podcasts have replaced that and keep me topped up with thinking about how my function, what I could do, my thinking process, the thoughts, etc., and how I need to keep on top of those, for want of a better phrase, to function as best I can for family, when I'm out with friends, etc. So I'm just going to have a little break, and then I'll talk about a few of the podcasts that I find of use. So, podcasts, amazing resource, especially if you're short on time, do a lot of travelling, etc. Can't really sit and read properly. Yeah, the way that I do this, I mean, quite often you might have seen in other videos, I've got my earpods in, and I'm listening to podcasts generally, not music, which as a music lover is something I've noticed that less and less I want music. I just, spoken word helps. But I start the day, most days, if I'm not attempting to go out for an early morning walk, which I will do increasingly over the next few months while the sunrise is getting later, I'll start my day with some yoga stretches. It really just helps me start functioning in the day. My brain's going, no, don't. Just sit, just have breakfast, etc. But I feel better, relative term. I function better after I've done the yoga and then had a meditation, 20 minutes to half an hour after that. And while I'm doing my yoga, I'm listening to podcasts. Now, generally there are one or two, and then I listen to others while I'm out walking, etc. First one I'll mention is 10% Happier with Dan Harris. Lots of interviews with authors, scientists, spiritual connections in terms of meditation practice, how to implement the philosophies into life, etc. Plus practical tips from scientific research, etc. So check out 10% Happier. Another one that I will recommend is Good Life Project with Jonathan Fields, I believe. As the name suggests, the focus is on what does it take to lead a good life in terms of talking to the interviewees. Covers a whole range of topics, sometimes doubles up because people releasing books, etc. with 10% Happier and other podcasts. But some very nice conversations. And it's not that, and this is actually practice on mindfulness, is to be listening while I'm doing my yoga, because I've got a routine, muscle memory, etc. Same moves, stretches, etc. Every now and then I might learn a new one that I put in there because I find it's going to help with something else. But even if you only pick up one or two key points out of the conversation, one word, then if it helps and just puts you in a frame of mind, or helps you see something differently about your condition, about what's going on in life, whatever it might be, highly worth listening to. Even if you think the title doesn't look relevant, quite often you just listen anyway, and there's something in a little nugget of information. Quite often I will share within the Fibro groups that I'm in, I will share an episode where I think, this is worth listening to. There's something relevant here for all of us to hear that you might find useful. The one you feed is also very good, and I listen to that as often as the other two. Some very good conversations along similar lines. It's about the parable of the good wolf and bad wolf inside each of us, and the one who wins is the one we feed. In terms of how we think about our condition, about what it's done to our lives, what we thought our lives were hopefully going to be, what we might be doing, etc. Working, going on holidays, or whatever it's stopped us doing. If we feed those thoughts about what life should have been like, that's feeding the bad wolf. What we need to accept, which is where my interest in the spiritual and the Buddhist philosophies come in, is that acceptance of, okay, I'm here, there's not much I can do about it, I'm doing everything I can, and I'm doing everything according to the medical profession that they know, that they think they can advise us to do. Now, as far as photography goes, there are quite a few good photography podcasts out there, but I'm going to give a shout out to one in particular that kept me going. I started listening, and it kind of found its form during COVID times. It was forced to make a change to what it was from the Photography Daily to the Photo Walk podcast, and it's very much about, yes, photography, but it's not technical. Talk about cameras, what gear they're using, etc., but don't go into great detail. But Neil James is an BBC Radio 1 DJ. In the past, he's now a wedding photographer, and he's started this up. He's built quite a substantial community, and it also, or more so, goes into why we do photography. What's our why? The mental health benefits, the health benefits generally of going out with your camera. So I'd recommend that, and I'll put some links, and I'll put up on the screen now some of the other podcasts I listen to. I've been talking and walking too long and doing two things is it's affecting my function. So have a listen to that, and subscribe to all these people. They really deserve it. Doing a fantastic job keeping the rest of us going in the world and trying to make sense of it themselves, which is nice. And last but not least, while I was undertaking my intensive of oxygen therapy last year for the first time, I wondered what I was going to do in the chamber while I was in that hour session. So I started looking up photography on YouTube just to kill the time. We had Wi-Fi available in there, no phone signal but Wi-Fi, so we could sit and watch our phones. So I started coming across people like Thomas Heaton, Nigel Danson, Mads Peter Iverson, and people like that, and then you start finding others as you go along. Thumbs Up Photography, give them a look, and then subscribe to the chaps that are involved. Yeah, Thumbs Up Photography, and then each of the guys has their own individual channels as well, so go and give them some support. But what the sort of the attitude factor, if you like, from watching those, as well as watching some of the Fibro people that I'm connected to, fellow Fibro warriors, if you want to use that phrase, advocates is a better phrase, with their videos. It just, you can relax while you're watching somebody else go for a walk. You might be doing that now, watching me go for this walk. In case you're wondering, I'm going uphill. You can tell, can't you? All that walking I do and I still get out of breath. Yeah, you might be doing it now, watching me as I'm talking to you now. Just relaxing and taking it in. You won't take everything in. But it's just something that I watch some of the street photographers, like Sam Bassett, Sam O'Shaughnessy, going out and about in various cities, mainly London, a lot of it, but also other locations. And because I can't work, finances are limited, I can't travel far, I can't drive far, because of my function and the way the movement of the car and all the concentration I have to do affects that. I can drive a short distance but not too far. It gets me thinking about what locations have I got locally where I might be able to do something like that, create a shot like that. Have we got a crossing like that where I can do some images? Have we got a shop somewhere that I can create those sorts of images? So whatever your interest is, might not be photography, but don't solely keep searching on the Fibro stuff, because you're just feeding yourself with more and more about the condition, what it is, and then your mind might start spiraling into, I haven't got the life that I expected, it's ruined my life, all these sorts of thoughts which don't help us with Fibro. Stress is a massive element, both mental and physical stress, and overdoing it is a massive impact on Fibro. So be kind to yourself, research what you need to research, put it down, absorb it, go away, distract yourself. Distraction is a massive, this is why I go out for my walks with my camera. I just stopped the camera a moment ago, a couple were walking towards me, so I like to not be rude and say hi to people as you're walking through the woods. When I was dog sitting little Simba again a couple of weeks ago, here's some pictures if you haven't seen my short. When you've got a dog, and we found that when we had our own dog for 15 years, people stop and talk to you, especially if they've got another dog with them. Distraction, that's where I was going with this. Distraction, distract yourself from constantly thinking about Fibro. Yes, it's a challenge. We feel it, experience it 24/7, even when we're asleep. Distract yourself. What are your interests? If they're not current interests, what were you interested in before, maybe? What hobbies or interests, even if it's reading or, watching things that interest you, learning new things. Some people go on and use that time to perhaps do some study if you've got the function that can allow that. It doesn't have to be something that you're going to use. It can just be something where it's a passion, it's an interest, and you just want to study it more, and the best way of doing that is through perhaps doing a college course or a degree or something. With the Open University in the UK, you can study remotely. You don't even have to go to a location. But in terms of attitude materials, I think that sort of highlights some of the key ones for me, but also the approach to how you're thinking about your fibro. Don't bog yourself down with too many negative thoughts. Any questions, any comments? As I've said before, I'm trying to get the balance right between this being photography and fibro and photography, because it is about photography, but I live with fibro, and if it's impacting me or whatever, you'll see it, you'll hear it, and I'll just provide feedback on how I am, really, just to sort of keep you in the picture. Anyway, thanks for watching if you've made it this far. Do go back and watch some of my other videos. Subscribe, like, please, will help increase the exposure of the channel, and share if you know others, or you're in other groups that I'm not in, for example, on Facebook, that sort of thing. If you would even share the channel or one of the videos, that would be really appreciated. So take care and go out there and find what works for you. I'll see you in another video.